Hi, I'm Laura. I'm a product leader specializing in B2B SaaS. And today I'm going to be talking about running a killer workshop. In this first part in our two-part series, I'm going to talk about planning and structuring your workshop. And then in the next video, we'll get into actually running the workshop and doing all the follow-up activities that make sure that you see the results that you're looking for. From ideation and strategy development to road mapping and backlog cleanup, workshops are a time-tested way for teams to collaborate deeply on a specific topic or problem space. It does take some work and preparation to really make them truly effective, but when you get it right, the results are fantastic, and we're going to get into that today. Workshop success is all about preparation. So first of all, let's talk about who should actually participate in the workshop. If there are too few people, you won't get enough ideas and conversation to really have a buzz in the room and generate the ideas that you need. But too many people and you just have overlapping conversations and chaos. The sweet spot for me is usually around 5 to 15 people, depending on what you're actually talking about that day. Try to get a diverse, multidisciplinary group. The exact composition obviously depends on what you're talking about, what you're working on, but people from different areas of the organization, people with different backgrounds, they're going to bring all kinds of different perspectives and ideas to the table. And that's what you most likely want. You do want to try to keep it balanced. You don't want one team overrepresented above everyone else or anything like that, but you do want to try and get people from all over the organization as much as possible. And again, that largely depends on what you're talking about and what you're trying to work through. But I really do try to have as diverse a group as possible. Now it's time to select a space for your workshop. Obviously, you need a room that can hold all the people you've invited, and you want enough space for people to get up and move around and walk around the room a little bit. And in the best case, you'll have a big open wall, ideally with a whiteboard, where you can do sticky notes and write out ideas and brainstorm topics, things like that. And you might think this goes without saying, but remember to book your room. I have seen workshops turn to disaster before they ever got started because someone did not book the room. So make sure you actually do that. And before the workshop starts, you're going to set up the space. You want to make sure that there's flip charts available, post-it notes out, markers, whatever you're gonna do. This is the kind of stuff that we tend to do in Miro these days, but I promise you, doing it physically on paper with markers does something a little bit different to the creative juices in people's brains. So if you're able to do something like that, I highly recommend it. But you do want to make sure that you have all those supplies ready, available, within reach. Check the markers to make sure they work. All those little details are what's going to keep things moving smoothly. Now, workshops tend to generate a lot of great ideas, and some of them are relevant to the topic at hand, and some of them aren't, but you don't want to forget about them. And that's where a parking lot comes in. A parking lot is just a list of things that came up during the workshop or during the meeting that you don't want to forget about, but they're not something you're going to talk about right now. So you just keep that running list on the side. You can do it on a whiteboard, on a flip chart, anything like that. I do like to make it something that is visible to everyone, just so everyone feels that their stuff has been captured appropriately. But, you know, if you need to write it in a notes app or something, that's fine too. And that's going to make sure that everything gets captured without derailing the meeting. And you will want to follow up on those items, and we'll talk about that in the next video. I like to keep some snacks and plenty of water handy. People are going to get a little bit tired. Workshops tend to be hours long, if not the whole day. And so you want to make sure that people are fueled and hydrated. Lots of caffeine, of course, and ideally you can provide for everyone to have a nice healthy lunch in the middle of the day. And finally, craft your agenda ahead of time, send it out, make sure everyone is aware of what to expect throughout the day. The art here is in being specific and detailed enough to make sure that everything gets covered while leaving some wiggle room for all of those really interesting in-depth discussions that might come up over the course of the day. You can also assign pre-work, maybe something for people to read ahead of time, or think about something where you want folks to show up with a couple ideas preloaded. Do keep in mind that everyone is very busy, and if you assign too much pre-work or it sounds like too much work, people just won't do it. And you shouldn't expect that everyone's going to show up with all of that work already done, but it can be useful to help things really hit the ground running. Okay, so what is the actual structure of a workshop? Now, obviously, these can take all kinds of different forms, but there are some commonalities that I have found really makes a workshop effective. So you want to start the day by introducing yourself as the facilitator, and then do the quick around the room, everyone introduces themselves, give everyone just 30 seconds or a minute to really quickly introduce themselves and why they're here. This helps everyone get to know each other, and it also can give you some insight into who might need to be encouraged to speak up a little bit throughout the day and who might inadvertently take over the whole thing if you let them. Then move right into some kind of activity that gets everyone up and moving around. If the participants don't know each other very well, you can do an icebreaker. And if this is already a really well-oiled machine, maybe you do some high-level visioning exercises, and that just gets a little creative buzz going in the room first thing. Brainstorming activities are a classic. They're a fun way to start the day. Really encourage everyone to think creatively and throw out even their most ridiculous ideas. Obviously, a lot of that ends up not being very usable, but there can be surprising gems in there. Plus, everyone gets to write their ideas on the whiteboard. They're moving around, they're mingling with each other, they're having fun. This is also a great exercise to do right after lunch when everyone's a little sluggish from all that food, and again, get everyone's brains just up and moving around again. Now, once you start to dig into the actual meat and potatoes of the workshop, there are so many different activities that you can try. There's too many for me to list here, but my favorite thing is to keep it really mixed up. Do different things that involve sitting down, standing up, where one person gets to talk, where there's some group activities. You want to keep it fresh, and this is partly where reading the room comes in handy, because you want to be able to notice when folks seem to start getting bored or their eyes are glazing over, so you can move on to the next thing and just keep it moving. Workshops often tend to be a full day long, and that can be a little bit of a slog for folks. You can consider breaking it up into 2 half days, or what I've seen done that works really well is you do an afternoon one day followed by a morning the next day. And that leaves, first of all, anyone who's coming into town, right? They only have to stay one night. They can come in one morning, stay one night, and then leave the next afternoon. And they're away from home for a shorter period of time. The other thing is, after that first afternoon of meetings and workshop, you can take everyone out for a team building event afterwards. Finally, hold some time at the end of the workshop to wrap up. Summarize the progress made, the things discussed, note anything that we didn't get to, what follow-ups everyone should expect, and who's going to take ownership of that parking lot that we talked about. Then thank everyone for coming, and if it makes sense, adjourn to a happy hour. So that is the first half of this 2-part series on running a killer workshop. Join me in the next one to learn about facilitating and following up on a workshop. And if you found this video helpful, come find me on LinkedIn. I'll post a link to that and my website below.